Well, thanks for coming to Middle East and visiting the Agile Middle East Conference. We're here with Rickard and with John, and let's just kick off with a couple of words about what you do, what your passion is, and how you want to change the world.
Sure.
Questions.
Sure. So I'll go first. My name is Rickard Jones. I'm an Agile coach from London, UK, and basically I want to help people and teams become the best that they can be and really unleash their innovation and their creativity. So at the end of the day, when I'm finished in my engagement with an organisation, I'm no longer needed because they've grown and gone beyond me.
Perfect.
I'm John. I'm a coach with a passion for Agile and ORSC, Organisation, Relationship and Systems Coaching. And I also help organisations become the best they can be, really focusing on the people and culture and the change and mindset of Agile over processes. Yeah.
So, we would throw in a nice question. We have functional silos in companies. Right? Should they exist in the future organisational structure? The silos sort of pecking orders.
Silos need to be broken up because every time we have a silo, we have task handoff, and it's a massive assumption that the task handoff will be correct. Yeah, and even if it is, then there's still the cost of delay to go through all those silos. And that's assuming that it is going to be correct, and with all the complexity that's involved with the deliveries that people are doing, the products they're working on, the markets and value they're trying to generate and achieve, and the amount of people they're dealing with all that complexity, there's a high chance that that assumption is totally wrong and have a cost of delay to then arrive at the end result, which is imperfect and a lot of money's been spent. So basically silos waste a lot of time, money and energy of people, and they're inhuman.
Yeah, I mean, the question of silos is an easy one. The question of how do you change an organisation that's been around for 100 years, that has been silo orientated for that long, to change to reduce that and flatten them.
Successful, your mum and dad say, become a manager, become just top of the food chain.
Yeah.
So how do you? And I don't want to use the word empower because it's dirty in a way. How do you just get teams to work better?
So the more and more I work in organisations, the more that getting buy-in from the leadership is really important. One of the things we've just done in the organisation I'm at the minute is flatten the bonus structure. So everyone, it's a bank, so it's very hard to not give bonuses, but what they've done is they've said everyone gets the same amount, which is the starting point, just to try and flatten things down. And put more focus on teams. So where they used to have a lot of individual awards, they've started changing to team awards and praising and focusing on teams and what they deliver.
Like the senior, you become a director, you finally got the flashy car, you got the great title, you really worked hard at it. How do you let go?
So what I say to them is that you can continue to doing your 16, 17 hours a day, or you can have a new way of working where you keep all the privileges and all the success that you've got, but you allow others to do the work, right, and to do the innovation because they're at the local level. They can optimize locally where they are at their level. And so basically, after achieving that greatness, if you change the way you work, you can maintain and sustain it. Otherwise, as we've seen in the marketplace, products and companies come and go, and you could, after spending all that time getting there, lose that. So this will reduce your risk personally, and you'll be able to sustain and maintain it, and possibly even improve and enhance upon it by doing less work, but more work of value.
Yeah, and I do a lot of one-on-one coaching with them, kind of walking with them on their journey. I don't expect anyone to kind of change overnight to you can't hold on to that. And if I go into an organisation, one of the things that I see a lot of Agile coaches do, which really upsets me, is that they go in and say, Agile's awesome, what you've done for the last 20 years is really bad, and you need to get on this bus. I was in a conference actually last year, and someone got up in front of 200 people and said, Agile's hard, and change is hard, and if you don't want to get on the bus, you can go. And it's like, what does that implied to people who've done something for 20 years. It's like you've got to work with them and have that compassion.
How do you get someone to let go? Like, let's say underboss, and you work for me. How do I letting go is also about trust, right? How do I know that you're not going to screw up? And
so I coach within a safe to fail environment. So coaching within that safe to fail environment, so we can run experiments and have innovation. So by running those experiments in a safe environment, it doesn't matter if things go wrong, and we do very small, tight, focused experiments. So therefore, we can inspect and adapt as we go along. We're reducing risk, and we're bringing in empirical approaches. So there's hard data, there's the real value, you can see it, and therefore that changes the mindset, that coaches the mindset, because they're worried about risk, they're worried about their own positions, which is understandable because it's based on a very flaky situation that they don't have full control over. And we change that from you don't have to control the teams, you just have to control the situation, and the teams will deliver for you. The people will deliver for you if you let go. The best way is to let go, but have it in a safe environment.
Good management or leadership, right?
Yeah, these things have been around for ages.
But we use a lot of reassurance and kind of just dipping their toe, and the more and more they see, 9 times out of 10, they'll give a bit more next time and give a bit more until it's...
And have you come across the concept of flow?
So so are we talking workflow? Are we talking, what type of flow are you talking about? Flowing from end to end?
Yeah, flow as in the psychological flow, when people jump out of planes or deep Buddhism, all those sort of elements of psychological flow, neuroscience maybe.
The
teams sort of start flowing together.
Yeah.
And
so we're talking about culture change.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about, culture. So I have to be careful about the definition of culture here. Yes. So I go back to Agile. Agile is a mindset, as opposed to what people don't say is the command and control mindset, which is what current organisations have because it's worked for them in the past. But the situation has changed where they have to face Agile organisations and they can't beat those Agile organisations. So culture is a multi-mindset. So many people having the same mindset, whether that's command and control, whether that's Agile. So if we want to have a flow where they're all flowing together, and then we have to have safety, we have to have a mindset and a culture of safety. Because then they can experiment, they can try things, and there's no detrimental acts or detrimental cost for them doing that. And then they can start flowing together and finding their own way as a whole organisation.
So it almost becomes sort of silos, back to that conversation. It's almost about the set of processes. Yeah? So it's all the value chain, if you want to use those sort of words, doesn't really matter, but stuff comes in, something comes out, and the customer will take it if it's good.
We have individuals and interactions over processes and tools though, right?
No, but the whole flow of an organisation is stuff coming together.
The value stream.
Yes.
But that's people who make that value stream. As you said with the mindset, it's those people who do it, not the processes. Because process may be right, it may be correct, but over time it may change, or people just don't get it no matter how right or correct it is, and therefore it doesn't work. So it's a waste of time and money, and also could drive your talent out.
So what sort of KPIs would you be recommending to a company? Normally we have functional KPIs, the silos, and we have process KPIs. Right?
So number one KPI I would recommend is Net Promoter Score, internal. Internal, because a lot of the studies have done, and you can find this on the internet. Spotify's always the classic example, but there's other companies who've done it as well. And if you have a strong, high Net Promoter Score, then it's a correlation with an external Net Promoter Score with your customers. Because people understand, and they've heard about, because there's so much communication these days, which companies are the good companies. Where do I feel safe downloading an app from? I download it from a store of my phone.
The silo HR, like head of HR goes, well, we tried ENPS, and it's a score of 70%. Really? And how many people completed it? 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's accurate. 70% of 5%.
So I mean, it's almost.
And
not looking deeply into it, is it? It's like, why? Filling it in.
And the first risk with the Net Promoter Score in Agile is you tend to, especially in a new transformation, it will go down before it goes up, right? Because that initial change and people, and then it'll come back up. And the adoption, the rate of people filling it in is also interesting. So how do you make that something that people want to do rather than a chore? Can we do it in a more...
So in a way, it's almost, I've always thought, as if many people are filling it in, that tells you you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because people
Yeah,
want to.
absolutely.
So one of the ways that I like to measure is using something called an informal constellation.
Okay.
So we can put a question in the middle of a room and ask people to walk around, and that could be, how happy are you in the workplace? And they will constellate, walk closer, the more happy they are, and the less happy they are, they'll walk to the outside. There's got to be some safety, and maybe you don't have it with the leadership in there, just the people, so they feel a bit safer. Yeah. And then we can take a photo of that, and then redo it every 3 months, for example.
Time has to be provisioned. So that time filling in, doing the constellation, as John said, or filling in a Net Promoter Score is not free. And there has to be a motivation for it. What do I get if I fill this in? Yeah, what's in it for me, right? Otherwise, why should I do it? Yeah, it's just another form I've got to fill in. Yeah, and the motivation should be twofold. You actually get something, maybe it's part of your bonus, maybe it's part of your salary. But the second fold is an explanation of why this is of value. We're actually going to take what we learn from here and act upon it. And you can hold us against that, because we'll create a story, put it up there on a board in front of the whole company and deal with it.
So that's the second question. Everyone doesn't pay attention.
Yeah.
What's the one thing we can do to improve?
Yes.
So that's exactly what we've just been doing. So we did our quarterly review, got all the survey feedback in, looked at it in a small group in the leadership, came up with 5 themes. We then took a small focus group and said, are we aligned? Are these the 5 topic burning issues? Yeah. And then we've created affinity groups for those 5 issues. But it's not about the leadership in bringing it in. That's now visible on a Kanban board in the office, and there's a team for each one. So it's not about the leadership implementing it. They'll support it, but there's a group around that to make that change. If you just do these surveys without having any change off the back of it, then you'll always go low.
The person, like every 3 months, every 6 months, how often does one ask an employee?
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Right, and the reason for that is actually the more frequent the better. Yeah. So I've seen Scrum teams who, after a retro, whatever, and they'll do a smiley happy face. So I've seen that. But if your organisation should be every 2 months, reason for that is you want to get that feedback in as fast as possible. If you can do it faster than 2 months, great, do it.
I like it, because
the 2 months minimum.
You can't keep on asking them that, because they get bored. No, they're engaged.
Yes, but also the Agile Manifesto says you should release every couple of months or less. So it's there's a time box in the manifesto. It's in the principles. Cool. So I hear people being Agile saying, we went down from 9 months to 3 months. Yeah, you've increased agility, but you're not Agile. Yeah. Right, and that foxes them. They get upset about that. But we've made a great, improvement. You have. Yeah. You've brilliant. Cool. But sorry, you're not Agile. And if we look at it, we're probably going to find you're not Agile for this and this and this. But you're getting there. Yeah. You're on the journey, and we shouldn't judge. And they're on the journey, and that's good.
And that brings actually an interesting question. Ask a couple of the other guys. People often say, in different countries. Here we live in a very command and control environment. That's how cultures are. Yeah. India here is just very much top level. If someone is embarking on going Agile, let's just say we're going Agile. Next buzzword.
Yep.
And then I say, well, how do I know if I'm going Agile? Is there a maturity matrix? How do I know that I'm from here to here? I know it's a never-ending journey, but especially old-fashioned thinking, you're still going to have to, until we do think Agile, dyslexic. How do I know I'm actually maturing?
Well, there's net promoter score, as I said. Your workforce is telling you, your people are telling you, right? Yeah. Whether you're Agile or not. And to get them to understand that, we'd have to do a lot of training beforehand to get them the base knowledge.
But down to your happiness.
Yeah, and then they can decide whether they're being Agile or not. That is your litmus test. That's your number one. Everything else rolls up to that. Because if you give them another target, they'll just game it. So, for example, if you say, right, you're releasing every 2 weeks, but I want you to increase your velocity from 10 stories to 20, they'll just split the stories. I've got 20 stories now, I'm great, So they game it.
Balance, isn't it?
Net promoter score is the real thing. Are you happy? Yes or no? Yeah. And then ask some other questions maybe about trying to find out why they're not happy.
And also winning in the market, like sales, your natural, the growth of the company would be.
Well, that can be ripped from you. So Kodak used to be number one. They had digital patents on digital camera work, and they eventually didn't exercise on that. So the end result was, I've lost my mic. Oh. The end result was, I'm good, I can go like this.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Nearly done it.
Yeah. So the end result was they lost the market, right? And they nearly went bust, and they only recovered because they sold those patents to Android, Google, everyone else, Microsoft. They sold the patents. That's how they survived. They had the technology, they had the key knowledge. If you don't execute on it, because their internal people would have said to them, we need to execute on this. And the management layer said, no, that's going to destroy our current lucrative market at the time. They weren't thinking ahead of the change, because that's a change to think ahead, and the change in the...
Yeah, I was just going to add team health checks. I've seen some value on top of that, but it's got to be not to compete with other teams, but an introspect.
That's a big
I've
one,
seen
isn't
some
it?
value
Don't
in that.
compete pointing to your team.
And from a more tangible point of view, I really like to see what lead time changes.
Good.
So that's always a good indication of
lead time is good,
that responding to the market and being able to
all sorts
to
of leads.
keep.
Even I'm requesting something from you.
Yeah.
How fast you get feedback on EMPS, that sort of stuff. Right. Last question, because it's an interesting one from my perspective. ORSC and Agile. It's the first time I actually heard that coming together. It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more. in a minute, just like a 60-second summary of why does ORSC, how have you moulded ORSC into the Agile thing?
Yeah, we've done that. Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So the workshop we're doing today is using ORSC. So ORSC is Organisation, Relationship and Systems Coaching. So it talks about coaching the system rather than the individuals and the connections and relationships between them. Today we're going to do some dreaming. So there's a tool called High-Low Dream in ORSC where we look at all three layers of reality. So there's that sentient essence when you first created that product and what that felt like, or when you first joined an organisation and got that first kind of feel for what the organisation was about. And then there's the dreaming layer, which is what's possible, what could happen. Think big, think outside the box. What's the most amazing thing that could happen to the product, but also what's the worst thing? And people often alienate that kind of out of their head, and that's really actually important. Yeah, and that's actually really important as well, and both are fine. And then we move it into that consensus reality of, okay, we've got this dream, we kind of feel we're somewhere in between the two, but how do we get to that kind of consensus reality? That's our MVP. How do we build that up?
Cool.
Yeah. So we've adapted ORSC and applied it in the Agile domain.
Good.
Yeah, and we went through the ORSC training to do that.
Which ain't cheap.
Well, it's not cheap, but there's a lot there. It's like five courses. But we're not here to talk about that. I'm talking about how we've adapted that to help people be the best they can be within the Agile and added Agile to that. So an Agile perspective to ORSC.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that workshop.
It's also got a lot of change tools in, so we talk a lot about the edge model, and we've talked about that a lot indirectly today, about kind of how people have a primary and a secondary, and how we can move people from what they feel now to where we want them to be or where they want to go.
Cool, good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.